Yeah, seriously, guys. Tell me this doesn't look like a young Joker, right? Huh? Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and I just saw the 5th episode of Ahsoka. And I gotta tell you, I have goosebumps. If you guys haven't seen the 5th episode of Ahsoka, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to get spoiled, I recommend tuning out. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. After the sequels finished, I became less interested in, I guess, what you would call the mainline story of Star Wars. You know, the epic battle between Force users finding balance in the living Force, the Skywalker Saga. This is always the topic being discussed in the main trilogy films. And I think while the sequels had moments of excitement here or there, it just didn't feel coherent. Plus, the fandom wars, the culture wars that invaded the fandom wars was just so exhausting. And so I became less interested in the Force and its journey to find equilibrium. And that was fine because at the time Rogue One came out, as did Solo, which I always thought was underrated. Maybe it's because, you know, Han Solo is my spirit animal. But anyway, I started falling more in love with the story of the everyman, the little folks that struggled, battled, and sacrificed just like the Skywalkers and the Kenobis of the universe, but often on a smaller stage and for smaller, but no less meaningful goals. I mean, that was the whole point of the Rogue One movie, wasn't it? I also retreated to some of the old novels I liked, you know, the Republic Commandos series, Darth Plagueis, great political intrigue, and then the Thrawn canon trilogy came out. Actually, 2 came out. There are also books like Twilight Company that I enjoyed, Inferno Squad, which is really good. And then Andor. Oh my God, Andor. I'm sorry if you guys are sick of hearing me talk about Andor, but if you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's time. But I guess the point is, ever since The Force Awakens finished and The Last Jedi came out, I've really just been less interested about kind of the more mystical elements of Star Wars, the main saga of Star Wars, the main storyline. I guess you could say I just didn't feel like I understood where the story was going anymore. Things just became less and less clear, and so I started drifting. I started looking at how the Star Wars universe worked. You've probably noticed on this channel we talk about everything Star Wars, from economics to politics to vehicle designs to the philosophy of religious cults. And that's because I'm like a naturally curious person. Like, I'm playing Starfield right now. This is my little command center, and I can't get out of the first hub world, New Atlantis. I just keep talking to people, you know. But ever since episode 5 of Ahsoka came out, I have these goosebumps, and it's because, like, something inside of me has been reawakened. Actually, not episode 5, sorry. This all started in episode 4, but episode 5 definitely made me realize how things have kind of changed and how I'm viewing these shows now. Episode 5 was good. It wasn't an amazing episode, it was solid. But what was important was that it felt like an old version of me that grew up watching the Clone Wars in between the prequels is back. Watching this episode, I felt like a kid again. I mean, never in my wildest dreams would I have expected to see a young live-action Ahsoka with live-action clones and live-action Captain Rex. What's even more strange is seeing live-action Anakin with live-action Ahsoka. I mean, Anakin in the Clone Wars always seemed so different from the live-action one we see in the prequel films. It was Sam Witwer, not Hayden Christensen. Their personalities and how they interacted with people, the stage of life they were in was different. One was more serious, more troubled, more moody, more out of balance. And the other one was a bona fide war hero, completely in his element on the battlefield, cocky, assured, and completely unaware of the darkness that was about to consume him. I mean, never in my life did I think I would see a live-action Anakin that looked like Hayden Christensen, but had more of the personality of Sam Witwer. I never thought I would see Anakin in live action calling his Padawan not Ahsoka, but that legendary nickname Snips. Is Snips like a racist word for Tigritas? If it is, that'd be hilarious. I'm gonna start calling people Snips. Okay. But anyway, this was really important because instead of seeing the young Anakin in episode 2 and 3 who's always brooding and, you know, a Padawan or a Jedi Knight that hasn't found his own place, we see him as a mentor, as a Jedi Master. It's a completely different side of him that only existed in the animated films. See, I'm kind of conflicted here. I want to be an objective observer of films, you know, Star Wars, other kind of movies. I want to be objective when I review them, and I always hesitate to review things if I don't feel passionate about it and I usually wait until this series is over, but at the same time, I'm like a huge Star Wars fan, and I love the Clone Wars. And it's really hard for me to judge right now whether I'm liking the show because of all of the fan servicing, all the callbacks to things that Dave Filoni created, or if this is objectively good. I think it's like somewhere in between. You know, I think we have to wait on this a little bit. A part of me feels dirty that like I'm falling for this nostalgia, and a part of me is also happy that I'm seeing all this crazy stuff in live action. And another part of me is kind of disappointed that it was all just done in like a minimalistic dreamscape and not a real one-to-one recreation, a real flashback. If anything, this is more like an artsy theater version of what live action Clone Wars will look like, and it just makes me really want to see a live action Clone Wars series. Like, how would that not do well? I mean, I know amongst, you know, I know my audience, I know you guys would love that, and I would love it too. But let's keep going. Let's not get distracted. But yeah, like I feel a little bit dirty watching this. I feel like Dave Filoni's doing this just for the fans. He probably knows that there are dumb YouTubers out there like me who are ready to skim every one of those frames and point out which battles are what in this dreamscape, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do because I have no shame. I'm like kind of geeking out. I mean, this first one here where Ahsoka says,
"This was one of our first missions. Why are we here?"
It could be Christophsis because, you know, that was the first battle in which Anakin and Ahsoka fought together, but because it's like purple, I'm guessing it's Teth, which was the second battlefield they went to. And also, Ahsoka says it's one of the first battles, not the first battle, so I'm gonna say it's Teth, okay? Now, this is a pretty crazy scenario. I mean, this was where Anakin and Ahsoka started basically competing. They were racing to the top of this cliff face they were assaulting, and eventually Anakin and Ahsoka would like join forces together and find out they were very formidable. I mean, these are really important moments in Anakin and Ahsoka's early journey. We just did a video recently where we really went into depth about the relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin, but like the Battle of Teth was a moment in their partnership where they didn't really know if they were gonna meld and work together. I mean, it was still unknown if Ahsoka could be the Padawan to Anakin, and you almost feel like in this episode, Anakin is pushing Ahsoka as hard as he can. I mean, he does some ridiculous acrobatic force nonsense, and poor Ahsoka just has to keep up somehow, and she manages to hold her own, which I think is really cool. But anyway, really cool watching this scene being replayed here. Then in this next scene, Ahsoka is confronted with several dying and wounded clones. Judging by the Twi'lek resistance fighter in the background, this could be the Battle of Ryloth. We actually never really see Ahsoka and Anakin on the ground during the Battle of Ryloth. We don't, right? I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen. In the Battle of Ryloth arc, we do see Mace Windu and Obi-Wan Kenobi a part of the ground assault, but Ahsoka and Anakin's share of the battle took part in orbit. And as you all probably know, Ahsoka royally screwed up her first command of a starfighter wing. She was overconfident and impulsive, and she disobeyed orders from Admiral Wolf Yularen to pull out of her attack run and help defend their capital ships. The mission resulted in almost her entire squadron getting wiped out, and they also lost a Venator-class Star Destroyer. This was another really important moment in Ahsoka's journey. This is really her first big command, and this poor child, she got so many people killed. But then again, it was a huge mistake putting a child like her in that position in the first place. It's just kind of cruel. I mean, this kind of failure, this kind of just screw up would shatter older and much more seasoned officers, let alone a teenager. I mean, it's insane. But Ahsoka has no choice in this situation but to suck it up, wipe away those tears, and kind of regroup. And that's because the clones need her, the Republic need her, the Jedi, her master, they all need her. It's that sense of duty. So this is another important part of Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship. And then finally, the most clear scene is the last one, where we see Mauls Super Commandos. These are former Death Watch Mandalorians, easily identifiable by their crown of horns on their helmets. This all takes place during the siege of Mandalore. So this scene is important because it's really where Anakin and Ahsoka separate. They take their own path away from one another. Ahsoka leads her own military force. I mean, by that time, Ahsoka had already led several commands. She was, you know, pretty experienced. But the idea is this is what Anakin had meant for Snips all along, for her to be competent enough that she could lead her own command. It was always about passing on your knowledge. This is something he keeps saying in these dream sequences. It's about passing on your knowledge, teaching the next generation, wink wink Sabine Wren, and just moving forward, moving ahead in a very singular fashion. This whole dream sequence is like almost a ride. Like Ahsoka is aware that she is in some kind of vision, but then she gets caught up in these battles, she gets caught up in the moment and almost forgets that this is like, you know, this is like a Force moment where she's supposed to learn. And I think this is really clever. It's a great metaphor for the Jedi's role in the war. They were basically on rails the entire time. They never had time to think. They never had time to really slow down. And I think that was one of the major issues that Ahsoka faced. And at the same time, the Senior Mandalore is a great example of Ahsoka not being able to escape her destiny. Remember, she left the Jedi Order. She was supposed to be removed from Order 66. But what happens? What happens is she returns just days before Order 66, leads a Republic unit that happens to be made up of all of her closest clone friends. Like, these are people that she fought with for over 4 years. And what happens? She gets Order 66 anyway. It just shows us that Ahsoka kind of never had a choice in anything. You know, the plan, her destiny was always to just follow this pathway. And I have an inkling that's why Anakin like shows up. It's not just about Ahsoka waking up and, you know, being alive, like as in not drowning in this scene. It's also about, hey, you know, Ahsoka, you need to wake up. You just got beat up by, I wouldn't say Lord Balin Skoll is a scrub. I kind of love him as a character, but he's definitely not at the caliber that Ahsoka is. She's supposed to be like a, you know, S-tier kind of Jedi, if I'm right about that assessment. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, she wasn't supposed to be beaten by that scrub, and she was not balanced in that last fight. She was not focused. She was angry. She was emotional. She let Balin Skoll really get to her with his comments about Anakin. But yeah, like in a real dark way, Anakin's message here is you need to suck it up and you need to just come to terms with the fact that you're going to be fighting this war forever and you have to see it until the end. So after getting over the initial shock of seeing these live action clone troopers and, you know, the ATTs in the mist, like giant beasts, right? I started thinking to myself, wow, this really reminds me of this dream that a lot of clone troopers have. Well, it's actually a nightmare. Tup talks about it right before he dies.
The mission, the one in our dreams that never ends, the one in our dreams. Oh, brother, this is the end. Forget the mission.
And then Fives also talks about it right before he dies to Rex.
The mission, the nightmares, they're finally over.
My personal theory has always been that the inhibitor chips in the clones' brains were conditioning these clones at nighttime while they're sleeping. And so they were creating these neural pathways to make them essentially, you know, assassins. And the side effect of that was this nightmare of constant warfare, right? And while the plight of the clones is beautifully discussed in the Clone Wars, I think Dave Filoni does a great job in really kind of highlighting this more screwed up aspect of Star Wars. But we oftentimes forget that these Jedi commanders were also in the same position, fighting the same endless war, dealing with the same trauma, death, and destruction. Yes, they were leaders, but, you know, really they were just pawns, right? They weren't actually in charge. The clones, the droids, the Jedi, they were just fighting each other for the Sith's amusement. And it's clear that this is something that Ahsoka still thinks about. It's a part of her past that I don't think she's come to terms with. And I think I'm beginning to see where Filoni's going with this narrative thread, where all of this is kind of leading. I also think this is why Ahsoka, as many of you have mentioned, is not herself. And she's 47 years old, and she kind of needs to deal with her past. It's now or never. But yeah, I have a lot of different thoughts that are kind of, they're forming into like theories and stuff like. Now I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot more thoughts about these sequences, but I need to kind of sleep on it a little bit. I am super tired. Subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on those videos. We're always releasing a lot of content about our speculations and our analysis about this show. Tonight I'll probably be dreaming about Purrgil. Actually, there'll be nightmares. They might look cute and all, and they look really cool in live action, but my thoughts are with all those innocent spacers and freighter captains who have lost their lives on the hyperspace lanes to these menacing creatures. I mean, they were terrifying enough in Rebels, and now, in live action, just wow. I'm also left with questions about the New Republic and how they will react to this peculiar situation with the Purrgil swarm. We mentioned that General Hera Syndulla is probably kind of screwed for carrying out her own little illegal operation with New Republic resources. Remember, she already lost 2 pilots, 2 X-Wings, so that can't be good, especially for an unsanctioned mission. I do have to say, hearing Senator Organa's name getting thrown around was nice. It gives me hope. I don't know if they're actually going to bring her back to life, or she'll probably just be some kind of off-screen character. But yeah, Princess Leia, or Senator Leia, as she's called now, should be working hand in hand with Mon Mothma on rebuilding the New Republic. But yeah, there is a part of me that's thinking right now that Hera Syndulla is probably walking into a situation that could be even more dangerous than the one Ahsoka or Sabine Wren finds himself in. Hera Syndulla has a lot of enemies in the political world, and it's not really like a battle she's used to, so this should be interesting. It could be very painful. The last meeting with the senators was really painful already. I think even with trusty guys like Carson T-Bat are back, her prospects don't look good. I'm thinking she's probably gonna get court-martialed, demoted, kicked out. Now, overall, my biggest complaint about this episode, I think, again, this is not a really good reason, right? It's almost like a non-complaint, but it's really the pacing for me. I feel like overall, not too much happened in this episode. And so that's just me being kind of a greedy fan wanting more stuff in this week. And we've got a lot of terrific fan servicing for all of us, Clone Wars fans. It was, like I said, goosebump raising to see her past come alive in live action. I've said that many times now. It'll be fine in the long run if you actually watch all 8 episodes together. I think the pacing will make more sense then. It's just the way how the release thing works. I mean, you guys remember how Andor was released? The middle episode in every arc was kind of slow because of that. I think they'll have to figure out a better solution to these release schedules. But anyway, I'm a little bit worried about the overall pacing here. I feel like we've passed the halfway point now in episode 5, and we haven't really been introduced to the new galaxy or Thrawn. I really hope they don't rush the last 3 episodes. I really want a lot of time being devoted to this new galaxy. I'm interested to see how it works, how things are there. I think it could be really interesting. We've never really done this in Star Wars live action. I also love Thrawn, so I want to see a lot of time being devoted to him. What I'm hoping happens is that a lot more stuff will build up to the 2nd season, and either we won't have a conclusion, or maybe, I don't know, the Rebels lose here. I think that'd be good, actually, if you have kind of an Empire Strikes Back moment where there's a lot of, there's a lot of adversity for people to overcome. I think that's a good thing. But anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section below what you think about this episode. As usual, I love reading the comments. We're a small operation. I write all my own scripts. Then I talk using this AI robot thing you see in front of you. And, I got my editor, Congo. He's in the shop right now getting repairs. I think I've overworked him. But I read all the comments, and a lot of times your comments inspire video ideas. So I like to see where the fandom is and what you guys are talking about, what you're thinking about. This was definitely a really just a cool episode. It took me back. It really took me back.